My sister stood up at family dinner, clinked her wine glass like she was about to make a toast, and announced that Mom and Dad were signing the house over to her. Just her. I get nothing. And everyone at that table, my parents, my brother, even my own husband, they all just smiled. Like they'd known all along. Like I was the only one who didn't get the memo that I didn't matter. But here's what they didn't know, that dinner? That wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of theirs. Before I tell you how this all unfolded, I need you to do something. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been the one who gave everything and got nothing in return, hit that subscribe button right now. Because this story? It's for you. And if you don't subscribe, you might miss the part where karma finally shows up to the party. Don't let that happen. My name is Alicia Salvatore, I'm 30 years old, and I live in Miami now. But this story starts 2 years ago, back in my hometown of Charleston, where everything I thought I knew about family got turned upside down. I need you to understand something first. I was the good daughter. Not in a bragging way, but in that quiet, invisible way that good daughters usually are. While my older sister Eleanor was off finding herself in Europe for 5 years, I was the one taking Mom to her chemotherapy appointments when she had breast cancer. I was the one who moved back home for 8 months to help Dad after his knee surgery. I was the one who showed up. Eleanor? She sent postcards. Beautiful postcards, I'll give her that. Glossy pictures of the Eiffel Tower, the canals of Venice, the beaches of Santorini. Mom kept every single one in a special album. She'd show them to her friends at book club, beaming with pride. My daughter Eleanor is so adventurous, she'd say. And when her friends would ask, what about Alicia? Mom would smile and say, oh, Alicia's around. Alicia's around. That was my identity. The daughter who was always around. My brother Jake, the middle child, had his own life in Atlanta with his wife Catherine and their 2 kids. He called every Sunday like clockwork, asked how everyone was doing, and felt like that was enough. And honestly, it was enough for my parents. They never expected more from him. But me? Different story. When Dad needed someone to clean out the gutters, he called me. When Mom wanted help organizing the garage, she called me. When they needed someone to house sit for 2 weeks while they went on their anniversary cruise, you can guess who got that call. I didn't mind. That's the thing, I genuinely didn't mind. I loved my parents. I wanted to help. My husband Benjamin, who I'd been with since college, he understood. That's just who you are, Alicia, he'd say. You're the dependable one. I wore that label like a badge of honor. Until the dinner. It was a Saturday in October, one of those perfect fall evenings where the air smells like wood smoke and possibilities. Mom had invited everyone over for what she called a family dinner. Nothing fancy, she said. Just spaghetti and garlic bread. But when Benjamin and I arrived at my parents' house, I noticed something was off. Mom was wearing her pearls, the ones Dad gave her for their 30th anniversary. She only wore those for special occasions. Dad had put on a button-down shirt instead of his usual flannel. Even the dining room table looked different, set with the good china instead of the everyday dishes. What's the occasion? I asked as I helped Mom toss the salad. Oh, nothing much, she said, not meeting my eyes. Just wanted everyone together. Eleanor had flown in from San Francisco 2 days earlier. She'd been living there for the past year, working for some tech startup as a creative consultant, which, as far as I could tell, meant she went to a lot of networking events and posted inspirational quotes on LinkedIn. She looked amazing, of course. Eleanor always looked amazing. Tall and willowy with that effortless style that made everything she wore look like it came from a runway. She'd even brought her new boyfriend, Roger, a venture capitalist with perfectly styled hair and a Rolex that probably cost more than my car. Jake and Catherine arrived with their kids, Benjamin Jr., we called him Benji, and little Alyssa. The kids immediately ran to my parents, who scooped them up with a kind of enthusiasm that made my heart ache a little. Benjamin and I had been trying for a baby for 2 years. Nobody in the family knew we were struggling. Nobody had asked. We all settled around the table. Mom brought out the spaghetti, Dad poured wine, and for a few minutes, everything felt normal. We talked about the weather, about Jake's new position at his engineering firm, about Roger's latest investment opportunity. Then Eleanor stood up. She tapped her wine glass with her fork, making that crystalline sound that demands attention. Everyone went quiet. "I have an announcement," she said, her voice bright and confident. "Actually, we all have an announcement." I looked at Mom and Dad. They were smiling. These knowing, secretive smiles that made my stomach drop. "As you all know," Eleanor continued, "Mom and Dad have been thinking about their estate planning. They're not getting any younger." "Hey!" Dad interjected with a laugh. "Speak for yourself." Everyone chuckled. I didn't. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Anyway, Eleanor went on, "They've decided to make things simple. Instead of splitting the house 3 ways when, well, you know, in the future, they've decided to sign the house over to me. Now. While they're still alive." The words hung in the air like smoke. "They'll live here as long as they want, obviously," Eleanor added quickly. "But legally, the house will be mine. It just makes sense, you know? Cleaner for taxes and estate stuff. Jake's got his own house in Atlanta, and Alicia, you and Benjamin have your condo in Miami, so." She shrugged, as if this were the most logical thing in the world. I looked around the table. Jake was nodding slowly, like this was news to him, but he was processing it. Catherine looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. Benjamin reached under the table and squeezed my hand. But Mom and Dad, they were still smiling. "We wanted to tell everyone together," Mom said gently. "It's a big decision, but we think it's the right one. The house will stay in the family, and Eleanor has agreed to maintain it, and eventually, well, it'll be hers." "What about the money from Dad's retirement account?" Jake asked, ever practical. "How does that split?" "That'll be divided equally among the 3 of you," Dad said. "This is just about the house. And Eleanor's going to be taking on a lot of responsibility with it." I finally found my voice. "When did you decide this?" Mom and Dad exchanged a glance. "We've been talking about it for a few months," Mom admitted. "Eleanor helped us see that this was the best option." "Of course she did. Don't you think we should have all discussed this together?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "As a family?" "We are discussing it," Eleanor said, her tone patronizing. "Right now." "No," I said. "You're announcing it." "That's different." An awkward silence settled over the table. Benji asked if he could have more bread. Catherine started cutting up Alyssa's spaghetti. Normal family dinner things, as if my entire world wasn't tilting sideways. "Alicia," Dad said, his voice carrying that disappointed edge he used when I was a kid and didn't clean my room. "Don't make this difficult. We've made our decision." And that was it. The conversation moved on. Roger started talking about some restaurant he wanted everyone to try in San Francisco. Jake mentioned that Benji had made the school soccer team. Mom asked Benjamin about his job at the architecture firm. I sat there, pushing spaghetti around my plate, feeling like I was watching the scene from underwater. Everything sounded distant and muffled. The daughter who was always around didn't even warrant a conversation before they gave away the family home. I know what some of you are thinking right now. "Alicia, it's just a house. Get over it." But if you understand that this isn't about a house, it's about what the house represented, then you need to hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next? It's going to make you believe in karma again. And if you click away now, you're going to miss the moment when everything changes. Don't do that to yourself. Stay with me. Benjamin and I left early. I made up some excuse about not feeling well, which wasn't even a lie. I felt sick. In the car, Benjamin tried to comfort me. Maybe they have reasons we don't understand, he said. Maybe there's some tax thing or... Benjamin, stop, I said. You don't have to make excuses for them. He was quiet for a moment. Then, you're right. I'm sorry. That was really messed up. I appreciated that he admitted it, but it didn't help the hollow feeling in my chest. When we got home to our condo in Miami, the one we'd stretched our budget to afford because Benjamin's firm was here and the opportunities were better, I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not pretty crying. Ugly, snotty, gasping crying. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and old, from every time you were overlooked, every time you were taken for granted, every time you were just around. Benjamin held me and didn't say anything. What could he say? The next few weeks were a blur. I went through the motions at my job. I was a project manager for a marketing firm, but my heart wasn't in it. I kept replaying the dinner in my head, trying to figure out what I'd missed, what I'd done wrong. I called Jake one night. Did you know? I asked. Before the dinner? No, he said. But Alicia, I get it. I mean, I have my own house. You have your condo. Eleanor doesn't have property yet. Maybe they were trying to help her out. By giving her a house worth $650,000? Jake sighed. I don't know what to tell you, sis. It's their house. They can do what they want with it. Technically true. Legally true. But it didn't feel right. I didn't call my parents for 3 weeks. They didn't call me either. Eleanor, however, did call. Twice. I didn't pick up. She left voicemails. Alicia, don't be dramatic about this. It's just a house. Alicia, Mom and Dad are hurt that you're not talking to them. You're making this into a bigger deal than it is. Just a house. Making a big deal. I wasn't making a big deal. I was finally seeing clearly for the first time in my life. I started thinking about other things. Patterns I'd been too close to see. When I graduated college with honors, Mom and Dad came to the ceremony but left right after to catch Jake's baseball tournament. You understand, right, honey? Jake's team is in the playoffs. When I got engaged to Benjamin, we had a small dinner to celebrate. When Eleanor got engaged to her ex-boyfriend Kevin, that relationship lasted 6 months, my parents threw them a party for 80 people. When I got promoted to senior project manager, I called Mom to tell her. She said, "That's wonderful, dear," and then spent 20 minutes telling me about Eleanor's latest Instagram post that got 10,000 likes. I thought I was being a good sport about it all. The understanding sister. The low-maintenance daughter. But I wasn't low maintenance. I was just being maintained at a low level. Thanksgiving came. Mom called and asked if Benjamin and I were coming to Charleston for the holiday. I don't know, I said. We might do something here this year. Oh. The disappointment in her voice was palpable. But it's Thanksgiving. Family should be together. Where was that energy when you gave away the family house without talking to me? The words came out before I could stop them. Alicia Marie Salvatore, Mom said, using my full name like I was 12 years old. We've been over this. The house is going to Eleanor because it makes the most sense. You need to let this go. Do I get a say in any family decisions? I asked. Or am I just supposed to show up and smile and be grateful for whatever scraps I get? That's not fair, Mom said, her voice shaking. We've always treated you children equally. I almost laughed. Mom, you gave Eleanor a $650,000 house. How is that equal? The retirement money will be split equally. We discussed this. You discussed it. I was informed. There was a long silence. Then Mom said, I think you need some time to cool down. We can talk when you're being rational. She hung up. I stared at my phone, shaking. Benjamin came into the room. What happened? I told him. And then I said something I'd never said before. I don't think I want to go home for Thanksgiving. Benjamin looked at me carefully. Then we won't go. Really? Really? Alicia, I've watched you bend over backward for your family for 10 years. If you need to set a boundary, I support you. So we didn't go. We stayed in Miami. We volunteered at a homeless shelter on Thanksgiving morning, then made our own dinner, just the two of us. Turkey breast, mashed potatoes, green beans. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. Jake called that evening. Mom's upset, he said. She made your favorite stuffing and everything. She made my favorite stuffing after dismissing my feelings for 2 months? I said. That's supposed to make it okay? I'm just saying, maybe you could call her. Smooth things over. Why don't they call me and smooth things over? Jake didn't have an answer for that. 3. December came and went. Christmas cards arrived from Charleston with a family photo of Mom, Dad, Eleanor, and Roger in front of the fireplace at the house. The house that was now legally Eleanor's. They looked happy. I wasn't in the picture. January. February. March. I didn't call. They didn't call. Benjamin asked me once, "Do you miss them?" I miss who I thought they were, I said. Work kept me busy. Benjamin and I started going to therapy, for the fertility stuff, but also for everything else. My therapist, Dr. Davis, helped me see things I'd been avoiding for years. You've been seeking validation from people who aren't capable of giving it to you, she said gently. Not because they don't love you, but because they've gotten so used to you being the stable one that they don't see you need support too. So what do? You validate yourself. You build a life that doesn't revolve around proving your worth to them. It sounded simple. It wasn't. But I started trying. In April, my phone rang at 6:30 in the morning. It was Jake. Alicia, he said, his voice tight. It's Dad. He had a heart attack last night. He's in the hospital. Everything inside me went cold. Is he okay? They're saying it was mild, but they're running tests. You should come. I booked a flight that morning. Benjamin came with me. We were on a plane to Charleston by noon. At the hospital, I found Mom in the waiting room. She looked smaller than I remembered, her face pale and drawn. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Alicia, she whispered. I hugged her. Because despite everything, she was still my mom. Dad was stable. The doctor said he'd need lifestyle changes, diet, exercise, stress management, but he'd recover. We took shifts sitting with him. Eleanor flew in the next day with Roger. Jake was there with Catherine. It felt like old times, all of us together. But something was different. I noticed things. I noticed that when the doctor came in to discuss Dad's care plan, he looked at me when explaining the medications. I noticed that when the nurse asked about Dad's medical history, everyone turned to me to answer. I noticed that I was the one who knew his blood type, his allergies, his previous health scares. Because I'd been there for all of them. Eleanor knew about his heart attack from a phone call. I knew about the 3 times he'd had chest pains before but refused to see a doctor because I'd driven him to those almost appointments he canceled at the last minute. On the second night, I was sitting with Dad while he slept. Mom had gone home to rest. Jake and Catherine had taken their kids to a hotel. Eleanor and Roger were grabbing dinner. Benjamin had gone to get us coffee when Dad woke up. Alicia, he said, his voice raspy. You came. Of course I came, Dad. He looked at me for a long moment. I'm sorry, he said. I wasn't sure what he was apologizing for, the heart attack, the house, the months of silence. It's okay, I said automatically. No, he said. It's not. I've been thinking. Lying here, thinking. Your mother and I, we took you for granted. My throat tightened. Dad. Let me finish, he said. You were always there. Always helping. And instead of appreciating it, we just expected it. We thought because you didn't complain, everything was fine. We thought because Eleanor needed more attention, you needed less. Tears were rolling down my cheeks. I did need you, I whispered. I just didn't know how to ask. I know that now, Dad said. I'm sorry it took this to make me see it. We sat in silence for a while. Then Dad said, the house thing. That was wrong. We should have talked to you. All of you, together. It shouldn't have been a surprise. Why did you do it? I asked. Dad sighed. Eleanor came to us with this whole presentation. Tax benefits, estate planning, how it would be easier for everyone. She was so confident, so sure. And your mother and I, we thought. He trailed off. You thought what? We thought you wouldn't care. You have your own life in Miami. You and Benjamin are doing well. Eleanor seemed to need it more. Need. That word again. Dad, I didn't need the house, I said. I needed to be included in the decision. I needed to matter. You matter, Dad said, gripping my hand. You matter so much, Alicia. I'm sorry we didn't show you that. Dad recovered. He came home after 5 days in the hospital with a list of restrictions and prescriptions. I stayed for 2 weeks, helping Mom get systems in place, medication schedules, meal prep, exercise routines. Eleanor stayed for 4 days and then flew back to San Francisco. I have a really important presentation at work, she explained. But I'll call every day to check in. She called twice in 2 weeks. One afternoon, while Dad was napping, I found Mom in the kitchen organizing his pill boxes. Can we talk? I asked. She nodded, her hands still busy with the pills. I need you to understand something, I said. I'm not mad about the house because I wanted it. I'm hurt because of what it represented. It felt like you were saying Eleanor mattered more. Mom's hands stilled. That's not what we meant. But that's what it felt like. And when I tried to tell you that, you dismissed me. Mom was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You're right. We did dismiss you. And I'm sorry." She looked up at me, her eyes red. Eleanor came to us with this plan, and she was so excited about it. She said it would help her feel more connected to the family, having the house. She said it would give her roots. And what about my roots? I asked quietly. You seem to have them already, Mom said. You have Benjamin, your job, your life. Eleanor's always been searching. We thought this would help her. Did it? Mom's smile was sad. She's back in San Francisco. She called yesterday to tell me she's thinking about moving to New York for a new opportunity. Of course she was. The house was never going to give her what she's looking for, I said. I'm starting to see that, Mom admitted. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like the invisible child, the one who gives and gives while others just take, you're going to want to see how this ends. Because what my parents did next? It's going to restore your faith in second chances. But only if you stay until the end. And if this story is hitting home, subscribe now. Because you deserve to see that being the good one does matter. Even when it doesn't feel like it. Stay with me. Before I flew back to Miami, Dad called a family meeting. He was still weak, but he insisted everyone come. Jake drove up from Atlanta. Eleanor flew in from San Francisco, annoyed at having to make another trip so soon. We gathered in the living room of the house. The house that had caused so much pain. Dad sat in his recliner, Mom beside him. The rest of us spread out on the couches and chairs. I asked you all here because I have something to say, Dad began. And I need everyone to listen without interrupting. We all nodded. When I was in that hospital bed, I had a lot of time to think about my life. About what matters. And I realized I almost died without telling my daughter that I see her. That I appreciate her. That I've taken her for granted for too long. Eleanor shifted uncomfortably. Jake looked down at his hands. Alicia, Dad continued, looking at me, you've been there for us in ways we never acknowledged. Every doctor's appointment, every home repair, every time we needed someone, you showed up. And instead of thanking you, we treated it like it was expected. Like you didn't have your own life to live. Mom was crying quietly. The decision about the house, Dad said, was made without considering everyone's feelings. It was made because we fell into an old pattern of trying to fix Eleanor's life instead of letting her build her own. Eleanor's face flushed. Dad. I said no, interrupting, Dad said gently but firmly. Your mother and I have decided to make some changes. We're not signing the house over to anyone right now. When we're gone, it will be split equally among the three of you. You can decide together what to do with it. I felt something loosen in my chest. Not because I wanted the house, but because it meant they'd heard me. They'd seen me. But more than that, Dad continued, we're committing to being better. To including everyone in decisions. To not assuming that silence means someone doesn't have feelings about something. He looked at each of us. I almost left this world thinking I'd been a good father because I provided for you all. But being a good father isn't just about money or houses or inheritance. It's about seeing your children. All of them. For who they really are. Jake spoke up. Dad, I haven't been great either. Alicia, I'm sorry I wasn't more supportive. I was thinking about logistics instead of your feelings. I appreciate that, I said. We all looked at Eleanor. She was staring at her hands, tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean to hurt you, she finally said. I don't know what I thought. That somehow having the house would make me feel like I belonged. Like I was part of the family even though I'm never here. She looked up at me. But you belong because you show up. I belong because I'm loved, not because I own something. I'm sorry I tried to take that from you. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was still angry. Part of me felt vindicated. But mostly, I felt tired. I forgive you, I said. But things need to change. All of us need to do better. And they did. Slowly, awkwardly, but they did. Mom started calling me not just when she needed something, but just to talk. Dad sent me articles he thought I'd find interesting. Jake and I started having monthly video calls where we actually talked about our lives, not just surface-level updates. Eleanor was the hardest. She moved to New York like Mom predicted, but she made an effort to come home for birthdays and major holidays. We weren't close, but we were civil. Sometimes that's the best you can hope for. Benjamin and I kept going to therapy. In June, we found out we were pregnant. When I told my parents, Mom cried happy tears and Dad got on a plane 2 weeks before my due date to be there when the baby came. Our daughter, Kat, was born in February. She has my eyes and Benjamin's smile. When Kat was 3 months old, we went to Charleston for a visit. Mom and Dad were obsessed with their granddaughter, taking a million photos, fighting over who got to hold her. Eleanor was there too, visiting from New York. She brought an expensive designer baby outfit that Kat would wear once and outgrow. But she also brought something else. I talked to a lawyer, she said one evening after dinner. We were all sitting in the living room, Kat asleep in my arms. About the house. I want to make it official that I'm disclaiming any future sole ownership. Whatever happens, it gets split equally. I had him draw up papers. She handed documents to my parents. I don't know if this means anything, but I want you to know I heard what you said. About me trying to fix my life with things instead of doing the work. I'm trying to do the work now. Mom took the papers with shaking hands. Eleanor. I'm not saying this to be a martyr, Eleanor interrupted. I'm saying it because it's right. And because I want to be better. For all of us. It wasn't a magic fix. It didn't erase the hurt or the years of being overlooked. But it was a start. You know what I learned through all of this? That quiet justice isn't about getting revenge. It's not about winning or making people grovel or proving you were right all along. Quiet justice is about knowing your worth even when others don't see it. It's about setting boundaries and holding them even when it's uncomfortable. It's about letting people show you who they are and believing them, then deciding what kind of relationship you want with them anyway. My parents didn't suddenly become perfect. They still sometimes forget I have my own life and ask for favors without thinking. But now, when I point it out, they apologize and adjust. They're trying. Jake and I are closer now than we've ever been. He calls me not just on Sundays, but randomly, just to share something funny or ask my advice. Eleanor? We may never be best friends. But she's part of my daughter's life, and she's making an effort. That counts for something. The house sits in Charleston, still owned by my parents. Maybe one day we'll have to deal with splitting it 3 ways. Maybe it'll cause more arguments and hurt feelings. But I'm not worried about it anymore. Because I learned something more valuable than real estate. I learned that I don't need anyone's validation to know I matter. I showed up for my family because that's who I am, not because I expected something in return. And when they failed to see that, I didn't disappear or become bitter. I set a boundary. I said, this isn't okay. And I waited to see if they cared enough to change. They did. Not perfectly, but genuinely. And the daughter who was always around. She's still around. But now, it's on her terms. Last month, we all gathered in Charleston for Kat's first birthday. The house was full of laughter and chaos, Benji and Alyssa running around with balloons, Roger helping Dad with the grill, Benjamin and Jake talking about some documentary they both watched. And the daughter who was always around. She's still around. But now, it's on her terms. Last month, we all gathered in Charleston for Kat's first birthday. The house was full of laughter and chaos, Benji and Alyssa running around with balloons, Roger helping Dad with the grill, Benjamin and Jake talking about some documentary they both watched. Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen while I was cutting the birthday cake. I'm proud of you, she said. For what? For not letting us break you. For demanding better from us. For being stronger than we deserved. I set down the knife and hugged her. I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart. And I see you. I really see you. When I walked back into the living room with the cake, everyone sang happy birthday to Kat, who smashed her little hands into the frosting with pure joy. Benjamin caught my eye across the room and smiled. This was my family. Imperfect, messy, sometimes infuriating. But also capable of growth, of change, of love that learns from its mistakes. The house didn't matter anymore. It never really did. What mattered was this, being seen, being valued, and knowing that even when people fail you, you can choose how to respond. You can burn bridges, or you can set boundaries and see if people will respect them. I chose the boundary. And my family chose to respect it. That's the quiet justice I was looking for. Not revenge, not vindication. Just being enough, exactly as I am. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever been the forgotten one, the dependable one, the one who gave everything and got scraps in return, subscribe to this channel. Because your story matters too. And maybe, just maybe, hearing mine will help you write your own ending. One where you're not the side character in your own family. One where you matter. Because you do. You always did. Even if it took them too long to see it.